So you may remember I used to make videos about various events in games and so on and so forth. I haven't done that in a while, but see, I'm on a tight schedule this week, and I wanted to make sure a vid dropped, so hey, I'll talk about the Game Awards. Not necessarily about the news or the awards, but the show itself. Sort of what it's become. When I was a kid, the Game Awards were something you could watch if you wanted, but you know. There was a few big announcements each year, and while it certainly couldn't hold a candle to E3, it was, charming. Eventually, it fell into lower budgets and lower views, and it became a shell of its former self, until Geoff Keighley took over, and yeah. And this year, it was fine. It's hard to judge a conference off of announcements, since so many are for products we know nothing about. It's hard to complain about who wins what, because, I mean, come on, it's an award show. But I felt this year especially that the hype didn't live up, well, this time around. I respect everything Geoff has done, but yeah, some of the quotes leading into this haven't aged particularly well. I think we can all agree that there were not 4 or 5 reveals on the scale of Elden Ring, not like these quotes said. I mean, the same game that won most anticipated title 2 years in a row, that's gonna be hard to live up to. I mean, while some of the announcements were big, many were gameplay reveals of existing titles, and I don't know about you, but quality aside, it's gonna take some pretty big announcements to get the kind of hype that Elden Ring has garnered. That's not to say it was a bad showing, just underwhelming in comparison to the past few years. There's certainly more emphasis on gameplay nowadays, which is appreciated, but simultaneously, there's still a lot of pre-rendered in-engine trailers. Something that boggles my mind is that horrific Rumbleverse trailer that gave off strong Indian propaganda commercial vibes. The gameplay was revealed the next day, and it actually looks like it could be a good time, so why not show this instead of this? And is it just me, or does it seem like the show has become filled to the brim with advertisements? I mean, it really felt like most of the show was either a Facebook gaming ad or a Final Fantasy Grubhub thing. So I went through the show, and here's the breakdown. Not counting the pre-show, this was 3 hours and 10 minutes long. Of that, 62 minutes and 32 seconds was devoted to new game announcements and trailers. 40 minutes and 29 seconds was dedicated to the actual awards themselves, and 15 minutes and 24 seconds was for musical performances. Given this, around 62.3% is actual content curated for the show. 38% is ads. Now, I could be off by a few percentage points. After all, the Xbox Game Pass PC ad contained new reveals and announcements in itself. So, does that count? Is that an ad? Either way, this might seem excessive, but remember, the average rate for television broadcast in America is 8 minutes of ads for a 30-minute block. So, 22 minutes of a show, 6 minutes of national ads, and 2 minutes of local ads. So the traditional rate for television ads in America is 27%. This means that there's a 9% increase between ads on TV and ads in this show. If I had to take a guess of why this is, it's probably the production budget isn't covered from ad spots, at least with the same rates as television, so you need more ads to get money. I think it's funny that the advertisers we're getting this time around are for the most part companies who wanted to get into games and have tried, just really can't, like Facebook and Amazon and Grubhub. I've been trying to rack my brain as to why the announcements this year weren't quite to the level of previous years. I mean, viewership has been going up, and it only made sense to me that publishers would begin to flock here as sort of the next E3. Given the leaked games I talked about a few months ago, I figured a good few of them would show up. Injustice 3 was a guaranteed hit. Maybe we'd get Starfield footage or some PlayStation announcements. Now, there's a few possible reasons for this. Big announcements from studios are meticulously planned. Announcements of major products increase share value, and I guess that December, with that holiday influx of sales, probably wouldn't make a dent. It's better to whip these things out when you need it. But at the same time, yeah, we've seen big announcements from major publishers before, so I don't know if that's it. I appreciate that the Game Awards can function as a platform-agnostic stage for all publishers, generally without the self-validation and pretension PR nonsense that comes with an E3 show. But many of these publishers aren't interested in sharing a stage. Instead, here we are mostly seeing games from publishers that wouldn't have an E3 showcase to themselves, or games that are releasing prior to summer when such festivities begin. By the nature of its existence, the Game Awards cannot be the next E3, simply because publishers wouldn't want their big announcements to get drowned out by everybody else. And I think a lot of titles have just already been announced. I mean, it's unlikely any major games for 2022 haven't already been thrown out there. In the case of some studios, games have been announced so far in advance that they probably shouldn't have been shown until 2024. It's possible publishers are learning from this, or maybe I'm just a bit too optimistic. We are also at this specific time in the generation where a slump always seems to occur, at least in announcements. Developers who received dev kits before the PS5 and Series X launched have already announced their games or released them. Many titles that were in development late last generation have targeted cross-gen for the last year and will continue to do so throughout 2022. New engines like UE5 haven't been available for more than a year or so anything more than a cinematic teaser probably wouldn't be possible. Some have received the engine in advance, which is why you see stuff like Hellblade. So what I think we're seeing here at the Game Awards is a time where next-gen games aren't ready to be shown off, and a lot of games have already been revealed. Announcement-wise, yeah, it would have been cool to have a single massive reveal, but timing just didn't seem to line up here. It seems that this has in some part contributed to lower viewership numbers than the previous year of the Game Awards. At least, that's my impression. I just looked at the concurrent viewer count. And that's okay. Honestly, I can appreciate the Game Awards as being a small bit of E3, a nice bit of news in what would otherwise be a drought. But I'm always reminded that hyping up such events never seems to end well. That's not to say there wasn't some great stuff. The new UE5 demo running on consoles out right now is probably one of the greatest things to come out of these events in a long time. Seeing this thing run on a $500 box is a sight to behold, and stuff like this is what makes these events shine. Also, we get Keanu saying Unreal Engine 5, so that's just great.